and hanging out with us for 20 minutes. One of the busiest men in show business, as we have said, Dylan Butler. We were going over the Everton situation before you came in.
Okay.
And how much of a mess it is. And one of our listener watcher A-plussers says, how does this sort of thing happen? I don't follow anything other than Major League Soccer. Seems like every time you talk about it over there are issues in the millions or something illegal. So how does something like this continue to happen in the big leagues over in Europe? And I said it was a mix of politics, economics, where you made your fortune, and trying to continue to have the breakfast at the big boy table on Monday morning and talk about how successful you were on the weekend.
So, pardon the ignorance here, but a quick refresher on the Everton situation.
777 Partners is looking at taking over for 94% of their main ownership. But they're a controversial investment firm waiting for approval from the Premier League. If this does not happen, dude who currently owns Everton is like, I ain't spending any more money. I've thrown in about $350 million or $450 million bucks. I'm done. And they've also got FFP staring at them in the face. They have substantial losses in the hundreds of millions of dollars over that same period, which is not good according to financial fair play rules. So you could have a team, and we have fans that are in pitch who are using the A word when it comes to Everton if this deal does not go through with this controversial firm.
Yeah, it's funny. A different but similar tones, right, to the Newcastle takeover. So I'm certainly well versed in that. And actually, as a result of watching the Amazon series, the We Are Newcastle, got a little more acclimated into the financial fair play, and it's really, really an interesting catch-22 for a club that's trying to push up, like Newcastle are trying to push up, right? Like to join the likes annually of the cities, the Man United, the Liverpools, Arsenals, Chelsea's, Tottenham, probably. So how do you do that? You buy players, but you can't just buy players. It has to be lined up with what you're raising as a club. The money that you're bringing in as a club needs to weigh closely to what you're willing to spend. So for the Manchester Uniteds, the Arsenals, the Man Cities, well, Man City maybe is a bad example because they've been caught up, but they just seem to print money, right? Because they're such a global brand. So Liverpool is a global brand, to me at least. So that's a little bit of what Newcastle are trying still to do under the leadership of former Atlanta United man Darren Eales to become a global brand.
Right.
Then they have the owners. They're like, look, we will spend. We don't care. But they've got to right now spend wisely. So how do you become a global brand? It's by probably winning trophies and playing in Champions League regularly. But then how do you do that? By getting better players. But how do you get better players? So it's like it's this. Yeah. It's a big catch-22. Now for Everton, they've got the issue, and theirs isn't a new one, I don't think, for them. They're always that second fiddle in their own city. And yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's a league that's becoming very fractured. I mean, I think MLS people in the front offices and some they'll tell you that's why there's this parity in MLS, that anybody on any given day can win, and even compete for a trophy if you're in the playoffs, right? That's not really the case in England. You'll have that one-off of a Leicester City, but the reality is it's still the big four. If teams like Newcastle are trying to break in, big five or so, who are always your teams because of the ability, again, to get players and because they are a global brand.
Yeah, and so it's I wanted to get your Newcastleian perspective about trying to keep up with the Joneses because we were getting into financials
It's
and
really hard. It's really, really difficult because I mean, there's so many shirt sponsors. Sure, everyone gets shirt sponsors, right? Like different kit manufacturers. Sure, Newcastle just got Adidas. But it's about again coming to America this summer was big for their brand, right? Having a great year last year, but now it's also like you gotta try somehow, even in this group of death, to make a run in the Champions League. You've got to stay afloat in the Premier League while you're playing on multiple fronts. So not easy.
No.
When you're on, I think it's a lot easier when you're on top of that mountain and you just want to try to stay on that mountain. But to climb the mountain, yeah, that's not an easy one.
Yep, Alex, one of our resident Newcastleians like yourself. Basically, you have to overperform for 1 to 3 years and incrementally add pieces to replace the overperforming with expected performance during that window. If you just try to buy the expected performance level at the beginning, you can get into big trouble.
Yeah, for sure, right? Like, and now you then you don't want to be a selling club necessarily, right? Because you want to again bring in the big players, so it's very, very difficult. In Darren Eales, I guess we trust.
Yeah, you and your fellow Geordies. Yeah, if this deal does not go through at Everton, they could be selling off Jordan Pickford and a lot of their other big names in January just to try to make ends meet. And yeah, we have been having the.
Yeah, we already tried to help them out. We took Anthony Gordon off their hands.
So yeah, you're right there working. Major League Soccer, they're not done tonight. You got folks who got makeup games tonight, but you've also got 2 other games, one for a title and one for a made up title, which is still a title, and it's a weird looking trophy. Last time I remember, the gamesmanship by Tata Martino about saying whether or not certain individuals were going to play or not play really should not be a surprise under any circumstance. He said basically at the -1 that you're not asking these same kinds of questions about Gregory and Mota, but you're asking them about Lionel Messi. Why give fuel to the fire? Why sit there and it's like, yeah, he ain't playing. No, you want to sit there and have as much subterfuge as humanly possible, and go, yeah, we'll see. You don't want to give Ben Olsen anything else to anything less to think about.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can see it on two vantage points. One, from a team perspective, yeah, this is going into the sport that we both love, the NHL, where lower
body injury.
We'll see. Game time. So you have no idea. The guy's on you have to wait until the pregame skate, and maybe he takes the skate. Yeah, so you have no idea if this guy's playing. Playoffs are over. You find out that his leg was broken in half, but he was putting it together with duct tape. So
Mark Recchi.
Yeah. So from a competitive advantage, yeah, I get it, right? From Tata, certainly. U.S. Open Cup is different because it's not a league match, but on the other side of things, there is, and I handle it for MLSsoccer.com, the injury report, or the player availability, it's called now, report. And from the league mandates that you, like the NFL, right? Like you've got to give your injury report, basically.
Okay.
Some teams work around that. Some teams hand it in late. Some teams don't do it. So maybe there's not enough oversight of that. I don't know. I don't hear about teams if they get fined or slapped on the wrist or.
I'm just here to hand you this list, Dylan, so I don't get fined.
So I can see it on both sides, right? You add in now the as you like to call them, the juice boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Now it becomes a little bit of a dicey situation, right? If you're a league that partners with a
juice box
any of these websites, you would expect then to be able to, that people would have the most information to wager on, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they don't now, right? So, it's a tricky situation. I could see it on both sides of it.
Well,
But this is U.S. Open Cup, completely different situation. I'm not writing up an injury report for the U.S. Open Cup, so have at it, Tata. Go right ahead.
I mean, yeah, well, because and I find it interesting that when you're dealing with juice box royalty, as is tied to, I believe, the league that we cover, uh, that you got folks that just don't hand in information you sir are intimately responsible for this list, and you have teams that are either late or don't hand in info. Seriously?
Yeah, correct.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
That's suboptimal.
some maybe day of the game, a couple hours before the game.
Huh.
Some have it tied into their own uh, sponsored.
Uh,
Um,
Distribution of information. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All
So
right.
then you have to wait for that on
Ah.
the individual team website. So yeah, it's a lot of moving parts.
Okay. What does your gut tell you about tonight in the first of the two competitions that are not affecting the standings in Major League Soccer?
Yeah, I don't think Messi starts. Now I will say this: I I would think the game would dictate his arrival,
Yeah.
whether it's at halftime, whether it's at the 60-minute mark, whether it's at 75-minute mark. But I will say this about Tata: everything that I have guessed at this point, he seems to do the opposite. So Toronto game, a good example. I thought he'd come on maybe the 60th minute. He and Alba, right? Load management, perhaps.
Yeah.
He started the match, and then they left in the 35th or whatever, 37th minute. So I don't know what Tata is going to do. My guess is it's a second half Messi, and his arrival is based on what is happening in the game at that point. Obviously, no Alba. I think Busquets starts. So
Okay. Well, let's go to the other side.
don't wager on it.
No. Hell, I tell folks, do what I say and do the opposite.
Correct.
Let's go to the other side. Houston under Ben Olsen has been one of the quieter success stories that we have out here in Major League Soccer this year. I don't know if it's because of the low expectation that we all had when it came to the Houston Dynamo, the lack of coverage short of the Glenn Davis and his show down there in Houston, where they just kind of fly below the radar and they just kind of do their thing, and maybe that was to the benefit of Houston. What have you thought about what Ben Olsen's done in season one there with a new owner that wanted to make a splash?
Yeah, I think if if St. Louis wasn't having the record amazing expansion season that they've had, I think you would talk about Ben Olsen as perhaps the coach of the year for what he's been able to do. And it's been. I mean, I think a few things had to happen. I think you had to have the buy-in from the biggest star, and I think you've got that. And Hector Herrera. Last year, it didn't seem like he was bought in or all that completely invested, perhaps. And maybe again, it's based on wins and losses. But I think you've gotten a buy-in from him. I think you've got a really good midfield unit there as well that complements each other. So I think it starts with that, and I think they've sort of rallied around just this miserable summer that you could have in Houston, and they rallied to make it a difficult place to or embrace the difficultness of it for the opponents. They've called it the hell in the shell, which I certainly appreciate.
Yes.
So yeah, listen, I think, and it's so hard to just sort of sustain success. So they've had their a little bit of roller coaster as well, but I think for sure, like of those 3 Texas markets, Austin, perhaps because of the newest team, they get more of the attention.
Yeah.
Probably Dallas after that, and then Houston third, right? So it's kind of similar to the California part of it, where Houston you would say is akin to San Jose.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because of sort of how Houston became Houston, but I digress.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of sort of flying under the radar. So I think all those things worked out well for them. Absolutely. I think it's harder to have this reclamation project with all the attention focused squarely on you, which is kind of what we're seeing from Miami, right?
Mm-hmm. The other one at 11 o'clock tonight is a Campeones Cup. It is LAFC going up against Tigres. Do you care?
Do I care? No. Will I watch? Yes, because I have to. No, I'll be working. So
okay.
Late night. Yeah, it's hard to care, right? Like the idea of this was pretty cool in the beginning, but then you get Leagues Cup and you have Champions League or Champions Cup now. So it's I don't know. It's hard to care about this, and I think the 2 teams will probably. I didn't look at the rosters, but equally not care about this because they both have more important games on the weekends. So a lot of triple digits probably out there for. If you could have triple digits in MLS, I wish they were triple digits in MLS. But you'll have a lot of triple digits, I think, on both sides.
LAFC 2 season is officially over, so you could get those triple digits out there. Guys like Aaron Bebo and things like that. With with that going on and everything else that we're staring at, you look at what happened this past weekend and how it leans into what's going on this weekend. Has your hot seat changed any when it comes to any coaches and their futures, or has your order changed? Has your guys changed when it comes to hot seats? What are you staring at with coaches now?
I thought Nick Cushing's seat for a while was getting pretty warm.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not now. Obviously, it's going to be based on if they make the postseason, and NYCFC's put together a couple wins now, and they've moved above the line. I would say I think Adrian Heath's should be warm.
Yeah.
Right? Should it not?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then to see like on the weekend AZ come back and burn them like that. Now, we've said this a million times on this show. I do not know why Adrian Heath / Minnesota, they don't put a value or proper value on young players. They just want to ship them. Yeah. And they want to bring in, I don't know, like the Finnish national team, it seems like. So I think it's a young league, and you need to have success with young players. So maybe this is kind of spinning around, turning on them now, but I would think that his seat would be pretty warm at this point.
Josh Wolf?
Probably. Yeah, I mean, because and we've said this too during the year, like, who are Austin? Like, did they just crazy overachieve last year? Or is it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Right? What year are they in now? 3 or 2?
I think this is 3. Yeah,
you're 3, right? So 2 years ago, did they crazy overachieve or whatever? Last year, I don't know. Who are they? Yes. Are they the team that was a Western Conference finalist, or are they this middle of the road team? Right? The data would tell you that they are who they are now, and that they did overachieve. So, sure, I think his seat should be pretty warm.
Let me give you a posit for
here's the thing too. Like, I was thinking. Sorry, John. I was thinking like Christian Latanzio is an interesting one.
Absolutely.
Because, like, how much do you put on a coach? So many games where you just lose the farm late. Like, they've given up so many leads. Like, they could be certainly a playoff team, maybe a team that's looking at a top 4 spot with all the points they've dropped. So I don't know. I mean, I guess that all of this ends up being on the coaches, to be honest. But
I think so. I think you're spot on. Let me give you one that's a wild card that we've had here on the network. John Herdman.
He's on the hot seat already.
Yeah, considering what the situation he's coming into.
Well, it's getting colder in Toronto, so that might be good. Like that he jumps in the car. He has the heated seat. Yeah.
But considering what he's jumping into, and how he's not afraid to let you know what's on his mind. Never having coached a club team before, not in a league sense. He's never coached a league team before. All he's done is go from youth to women's national to men's national, and then it's like, yeah, I think I'll coach a league. I'll coach a league side, and it just so happens to be in the largest media market in the country, where you're having the most attention drawn to you, and you're not afraid to sit there and speak your mind. I think John Herdman's seat is already hot. Even though he hasn't done a thing, he's going into a hot seat situation.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but like if you're Toronto, this like all these I'm not getting the right metaphor, but like just this rotating door of coaches. Like,
well, Bill Manning's seat should be really hot too.
His should be hotter than any of the coaches. But to your point or your question about the coaches, like every time I think you bring in a new coach, like you're pushing your development back because you've got to start, at a ground zero. So, if you give him a 10-game lead up and they're 7-3, and you get rid of them, like what are we doing?
Yeah.
Right. Like as an organization, like what, we got to start over again, so.
This weekend, Crew and Union, Messi and Friends hosting NYC. That one will not be played at Red Bull Arena with a bad water pipe. Let's see. Revs in Charlotte, Red Bull Chicago, Orlando City hosting Montreal, Toronto hosting Cincy, Copa Tejas, Houston, Dallas, your Finns and the Earthquakes, Nashville and Seattle in an interesting one. All Caps and Sporting Kansas City, the Interstate Derby. Was it the I-74 Derby or whatever? Colorado and Austin, LAG, Portland, Vancouver, DC, LA, and RSL. What sticks out in your mind this weekend? Crew and Union out of the blocks?
I was going to say Miami NYCFC.
Okay.
Because it's a 6-pointer of teams right there at the line, or at least Miami trying to push up to the line. All the conversation around them making the playoffs, you would think they would be right below the line, but they still have teams to climb over. So I think for me that is at the forefront, again, because I think if NYCFC win a third straight game, I mean, they're really cruising then. And what is it? 5 points, 5 matches right now for Miami. They really don't have much wiggle room right now. So I think that should be a fun one. And but yeah, no, I think Columbus Philly is interesting. Like who are Philly, right? Like, are they a cup contender, or are they a team that, certainly we didn't learn anything from that LAFC match. We were so excited about that one, and that was a boring 0-0 that you don't blame that on the rain, by the way.
Why not?
Milli Vanilli, you cannot.
I was right there with you, but I was hoping that you would continue the verse. So we blame it on the stars? Was that what you're saying?
If you can get what was it, 8 goals in the same conditions at Audi Field, you can get something out of that one. Two teams just not interested in anything. Like, they were just like, look, we'll take the points. Let's just get out of here. No one gets hurt. So that was unfortunate. So hopefully none of those situations this weekend. But I don't think as many super, super really interesting ones as last weekends.
Right.
But definitely a couple there that stand out for sure.
All right. So what's Varsity Media got this weekend?
I'm off. I'm off from everything. I have a out of town wedding to go to. So
do people not understand
upstate New York,
north of the Mason-Dixon line, that this is football season and that you're not supposed to have weddings during football season?
It is what it is. So my wife's cousin is getting married. So that's what I'll be.
All right. Well, busiest man in show business, Dylan Butler, Varsity Media, MLSsoccer.com, OSDB Sports.
By the way, check out that OSDB on OSDB Sports. By the way, check out that Chris Wingert story. I thought it came out pretty well. I'll shoot you the tweet. You could retweet it.
We will retweet.
It was pretty interesting from his perspective of going as a player. Here's real quick. Here's the lead, and I think it was pretty fun. Like, he's had a house since he's lived for all those years in Salt Lake in Park City, Utah.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got the house. He's got the morning coffee, looking out at the slopes. It's like January, right? He's like, oh, what a beautiful morning. And then he realizes, like, oh, snap, RSL are in preseason right now. I was having conversation with them. Maybe this isn't going to happen. Like, maybe my 15th year will not happen. So, and in that sense, it was sort of like it hit him, like, whoa, like I'm done. Like, who I've been for my whole life, this soccer player persona is perhaps gone. And on the other side of it, it's like, well, I didn't work out this morning, and that's fine. I'm not too worried about that. So, then it was sort of about him trying to figure out his post player career. And he's found that as an agent with Rock Nation. So,
oh, very cool. Well, yeah. So shoot us the link, and we will retweet on the 280 character app. Get ready for the wedding that is not yours this week, and we'll catch up with you next week, my friend.
All right. Cheers.